I unknowingly just gave you 40 reals, but it was actually worth people who are generally, if you're going to think about it, they're more socially aware of each other. They have got better sense of people. They're better at judging people. It's a sad thing because nowadays we've sort of disconnected from each other, and because of that we stopped being good at judging characters. We're falling for the wrong people. We're believing the wrong people basically, and that's just due to us not actually interacting with enough people that we were able to build a better knowledge or a better awareness of people awareness basically. And so today's story sort of helps. This sort of intro will really sort of help you understand the context of the story. The story is based in Saudi Arabia again, and this is merely, it's to do with the Bedouins. So the Bedouins are pretty much the nomad community. So these nomad communities will be travelers traveling from one side to another depending on their needs, their wants, the season, and whatever's good for them really. So essentially here we're talking about a group, or a Bedouin group, who rely on bartering, or they rely on exchange of products and items for services and items that they want. Sort of a primitive idea. That's how money actually started. But until that idea became mainstream out of the cities, people in rural communities and villages and nomad communities, that's how they still continued with. They just exchanged things. Now this particular group, so this particular tribe, what they did was they bartered in dates, and they came to a stage where they were running out of dates to exchange and ask for products. And what they ended up having to do is to send somebody from the tribe to go to the city, ask for dates, bring them back, but they don't have money. So the idea was to take it on a loan. They chose one person who went to the city and went specifically to the market, the date market, where he walked in and you can see this big market. It's sort of a bazaar idea. So you got all the traders, you got the sellers, the retail sellers, the wholesalers, the auctioneers, auctions on dates. Yeah, it still exists till today, these auctions. Now this person had a mission. His mission was to go and get as much date, but not for money. Now they don't have money to exchange for, so the idea was that they'll take it and start exchanging for money down their side of the community, out of the city. So the idea was, because they don't have money, they've got to take it on loan. So the guy in the story, he went around and looked at the different merchants, and he just sort of eyed them up and sort of judged people's characters based on what he could see from their interactions, how they're interacting with their customers. Anybody who's got a really decent reputation coming through. So he went around looking for a particular person, and then he spotted one particular person. That person looked quite honest, quite sincere, quite helpful. He didn't look conniving or much of somebody who's going to take advantage. So he went and approached him, and he went up to him and he said to him, "Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa alaikum salam. Now I would need as much data as I can from you, but on the condition that you lend us its cost for about a month time." So the guy said, "Just come in and let's just eat and discuss it over lunch." So they sat down and they were discussing, and that guy was trying to judge the size of his tribe and his community. So after a lot of back and throws and questions and answers, he realized that, this is quite a big tribe, and to lend them enough date for them will be a problem. So he went back to him and he said to him, "Listen, okay, we're talking about reals, and we're talking about reals back then, much like how we say the pound, and how much a pound could get you in terms of value is different from today's value. Obviously now you've got inflation, etc. But back then a real can take you quite a long way. So this man went back, the trader said to the guy from the tribe, and he said to me, listen, if I lend you the cost of the dates, how much dates would you need? He said, of course, whatever you can spare, really. He said to him, well, the idea is, if I take, let's just say, I can lend you what I can, especially you being a nomad community, it's quite hard to probably find you after this. And so I've really got to protect my interests. I've got to protect my own trade. So if we were to say, I'd give you, say, something like 7 or 8 reals worth of dates. Now, remember, 7, 8 reals of dates is not the same as 7, 8 real today. We're talking about way back. Pre the existence of Aramco, which is about there. So you can imagine that we're looking at quite an old time. You, as a community, you need a lot more to just to get by, and to lend you that big chunk of dates and cost will really ruin me as a trader, because this 1 month gap without any assurance that you'll come back is quite, you've really put me in a quite tight situation here. I'd love to help you, and I'll if there's anything you could suggest that would help both of us and protect us both, then I'll be more than welcome to accommodate that. But until then, I'm really in a tough situation to say yes to this. And sorry, I'm just going to sidetrack. A lot of people put us in a lot of hard and tough situation. They sort of corner you there, and then they ask for things that only sort of serves one person, and it's that person who suggested the idea. And you've really got to protect yourself. There is no sympathy. I mean, there is sympathy and care that really to a stage, but not to risk your family, not to risk your livelihood, not to risk your trade. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu came and donated his entire wealth to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he said to him, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked him, what have you got left? What have you left for your family? And he said, well, I left Allah for them. That's the level of faith he had in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He knew that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would not. And Allah, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said no. He forced him to take a chunk from it back for his family. So the idea is, yeah, trust people, yes, be careful, but you've really still got to protect your own interests at the same time. You don't want to be prey to those people who will take advantage of you. You don't want to be take it with a pinch of salt. And the moral is just be careful, basically. And here's a guy who as I said to you, socially, he felt that this guy is very honest, and he knew that this person is trustworthy, and hence he opened up the discussion and allowed him to come up with a more creative solution to this little dilemma. But at the same time, he wanted some assurance. So next time somebody asks you for a loan for anything, do the paperwork, get assurances, get solicitors involved, whatever it is, do it. Protect your interests. Don't fall prey to anybody's sweet tongue or silver tongue, as it said. So going back to the story, the guy had sort of a belt with, it was a well decorated one. He had a nice dagger encrusted with all sorts of gems and bullets. It was one of those gun sort of straps. Don't know what's it called, but essentially it was one of those sort of belts that is a bit of a multifunctional belt, and because of what it had on it, it appeared to have a bit of a value to it. And so what our guy realized, he said, okay, here's a belt, how much do you think this is worth? So he said, well, I'm not expert here, but if I was to say anything, I'd say it's worth about 40 reals, 40 reals. The guy started thinking and said, okay, can I keep this as collateral over with you? Keep this and give me dates to 40 reals worth of dates. Give me those, and in 1 month time, if I don't come back to you, then please, by all means, take that belt, sell it, and recoup your costs. If I do come back, then with the money, can I have it back? So just keep it with you for a moment. The guy said, okay, you see, that I can work with. That is more achievable. And so he took about 40 reals worth of dates, took it from him, went back to his tribe. First week, second week, third week. Now we're getting on to 25 days after that little trade happened. And his entire tribe had to actually move from that region. And instead of going towards Qasim, which the story happened, they moved even further. And he realized it's not really much worth me going all the way back to just for the belt. He can just sell it and, you know what, get the money. And Allah khair, Jazakallah khair, at least he tried to help me. So he went with his group, and then they migrated from where they were, and then they headed off from there. Years go past, and then Aramco existed. Now Aramco, when it started, you're talking about one of the largest, in fact it still is the largest company in the world, right? So Aramco had sort of a campaign of recruitment campaign, recruiting as many people as they can in the different positions that such a huge company would need. So this guy applied for one of the jobs, got the interview, then got the job in that position, in a position as a driver. So as a driver for that company, he had to deal with all the cars for the company, and he'd take it from one site to another, one location to another. And so his journeys, his road was a lot on, his work was just mainly a lot on the road. So now, happy with his job, he continues, and then years and years have gone past. He wasn't educated so that he would actually start excelling in his job or moving. His job was quite specific and he enjoyed it. He allowed him to do what he does best, really, which is moving around. So now we've got this guy, we're talking 20 years have gone past since that story had gone. Now, one day he had a job where he had to actually go to Eneza. Eneza was where this story all happened, where the exchange of the dates happened. So one day he was posted to go there, and he sort of parked the truck that he uses to transport the cars on, and he started looking from a distance, and he saw or spotted that market, and he started realizing that, subhanAllah, I remember this had happened to me, and that happened, and he was telling his colleague about this story. Little did they realize that where they were parked, it was sort of next to a farm. And as they were resting, the owner of the farm came out and asked them about why they're there. And, you know, the usual. He was quite an elderly gentleman who came up to them and asked them what they're doing, why, how, and all of that stuff. And, you know, the normal chit chat that you'd have. Now, as I said, the story has happened quite a long time ago, so people were much more welcoming, much more social. Now we're talking about Saudi Arabian and Arab hospitality now here. He just turned back to them and said, since you're sat there, you're my guest now. Come in. Well, we've got our dinner. We've got our lunches ready. We're all done. We're set. No, we're gonna make a move very shortly. He said, no, come on, sit down. So he sat down. He prepared, got the lunch ready for the guy and his friends, whoever was with him on this journey. So they sat down, and over there they started talking, and amongst the conversation that had happened, our friend here narrated the entire story that's happened to him with the merchant. And that guy, the elderly gentleman, started, he almost sort of recognized the story. And every time he says a sentence, he says, yeah, and then what happened? And then what? And did this happen? Or did that? Or what? And he goes, yeah, and he just continued the story, and he realized, would you remember? So this is the elderly gentleman saying, or let's just say the host, telling this guy, would you remember the guy? He said, 20 years back, how am I supposed to remember? He goes, well, just try to remember any features, anything. What about his shop? Would you know where it is, or what stall was he? I think I remember there was a very long palm tree next to where he was, or behind it, or something. So there was that. Goes, oh, this is Abu Sulaiman. I know Abu Sulaiman. I know your story. Every day we hear your story. Every now and then he reminds us of it, just in case the daily reminders isn't. He goes, why? I mean, you know what? I left the collateral. He's got the belt. He's got the money, and I'm sure he wouldn't need me for any other reason. Why would he still want to see me? He goes, no. He's got something really important to tell you. It's something that's developed. He goes, why? What happened? Come with me. And he took him. It was the next farm was Abu Sulaiman. Abu Sulaiman is the guy who actually lent him the 40 riyals worth of dates, and he took him to him. So now this elderly gentleman with this guy, and they walk into this other farm. He calls upon Abu Sulaiman. Abu Sulaiman comes out, another elderly gentleman, obviously 20 years and things have gone past. I found him. I goes, who did you find? I found the guy who you lent 40 riyals worth of dates. Oh, subhanallah, Allahu Akbar, mashallah, where have you been? I've been waiting for you, I looked for you, and etc. What happened? I cleared my debt with you. You had my belt. You can sell it. He goes, well, yes, but there was an issue. Because what happened? He goes, do you know when you asked me how much is this belt worth? And I just roughly said 40 riyals. He goes, yeah, mashallah. And he remembers the amounts, even though there's been a difference in the value of this riyal, but he still remembers the true values back then. He says, yes, I do remember. 40 riyals, and you gave me 40 riyals worth of dates, and we were all good. And the guy said, well, the thing is, I unknowingly just gave you 40 riyals, but it was actually worth 50 riyals, so an extra 10 riyals. I know it's not earth-shattering, it's not worth telling people the story about, but again, 10 riyals back then did a lot. He goes, yes. Khalas then, so what? I've walked off and you sort of more than covered your costs and expenses. I mean, I'm sure you've done us and my entire tribe a massive favour, so I think it's only fair that you kept it. He said, well, that's not the problem. The issue here is that I took that 10 riyal and I was so worried and scared and paranoid about using it, or that it gets lost and or devalues or depreciates in value. And so what I've done is that I went into a new trade, and I went into the cattle industry, and I started trading, and I took your 10 riyals and added it to my main capital. And when we did that, I started making a lot of money. And do you see there, all those sheep over there in that region? Can you see all of that? Yeah, I can see them. That is just your share. I said, well, what do you mean my share? But that's your money. I added it to my capital, and it's only fair and right and honest and true that I actually give you back your share of the money, or your share of this little partnership that you didn't know about. But this is yours, all of that shit. He goes, well, yeah, this is yours. He goes, you held on to it. He goes, I even made it in my will to make sure that this goes to you eventually, however way we find you. He goes, subhanallah, and after all, Allah yajzak khair, and jazakallah khair, and I appreciate your honesty, etc, and all of that stuff. You know what? All of that sheep, all of that is yours. I don't want anything from it. You created this wealth by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You did everything. You were the honest person, and I think it's only befitting that you keep it. It's your money. There's nothing I could do about it. And there was a lot of jazakallah khair, are you sure? But he just left it and said, Wallah, I will not take anything. I will not take any penny from that. Allah wrote that for you, and I'm not taking anything from that. And there you have it. Obviously, everybody goes their own way, but the thing is, why did I say this story? What's so important? I mean, yeah, took it, kept it, and end of story. There's nothing much to it, but the idea is, we so lack that sort of trust, honesty. We feel that everything is ours. We have a sense of entitlement to everything, and oh, I created this, and why would he even hold on to it? Why would he even mention it? Now, the guy left 20 years on and he still remembers it, he still remembers the events of it. And I think as a true Muslim, or as a Muslim, you've really, really got to adhere to the teachings of Islam, especially when it comes to things that involves people's money, people's wealth, people's property. You can't misuse it. You at work, you can't misuse work's property, time, money for your own benefit. This is a part of you characterizing or demonstrating Islam, is that you are very trustworthy with people's property and products and money. If you have any notion or any idea or any thought that you're going to borrow money or do it or just destroy or sort of ruin or waste people's money, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will destroy you and waste you. And who knows that this man would have been as successful as he was if he had bad intentions of taking that 10 extra riyals. Maybe the barakah and the blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that befell that person was purely because of his clean intentions. Remember? In fact, there'll be a story about the pomegranate. I'll eventually put a link to it in the description here, depending on when you're seeing this. But the idea of intention is huge. And this guy's intention was to return that money back to that person, and so I know for a fact Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed him because of his intention. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bestow upon us his mercy, love, forgiveness, and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us adhere to the pure, clean path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Until next time, I bid you all farewell. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.